This is Story Recapped. Today, I'm going to explain an action, sci-fi, thriller film called The Lawnmower Man. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. Inside the lab of Virtual Space Industries, or VSI, Dr. Lawrence Angelo argues with Sebastian Timms over the organization's plan to use his research in virtual technology to train a chimpanzee for war. Angelo contends that it would be more beneficial to continue his experiments to enhance the chimp's intelligence. Timms, however, points out that his funding comes from the management, and they want him to stimulate the animal's primal rage to see what happens in the virtual battlefield. Soon, the chimpanzee, named Roscoe 1138, is subjected to the experiment and successfully eliminates all threats against him. After the experiment, Roscoe escapes from his cage. During his escape, Roscoe steals a gun and eliminates a guard. Roscoe soon finds the exit, but gets shot on his way. That night, Timms tells Angelo that Roscoe has escaped. In a search for sanctuary, the wounded chimp ends up outside a church, where Job Smith tends to the garden. The chimp initially sees Job as a threat, but he realizes that he's friendly when he looks closely at Job's eyes. Job, a grown man with the mind of a child, believes that Roscoe is a superhero named Cyboman because of the chimp's VR helmet, so he hides Roscoe in his shack when a helicopter flies over the area. Later that day, Father Francis McKean heads to Job's shack to ask him to do his chores. However, he sees the chimp and reports it to the police. Soon, armed men from VSI arrive to retrieve the chimp. Angelo wants the chimp alive, so he convinces Job to come out with Roscoe. When they finally do, the chimp gets agitated upon seeing several armed men. The men start shooting at Roscoe as he tries to climb a tree. Job wails upon seeing the chimp die, so McKean consoles him. That night, McKean tells Job that he endangered the church when he hid Roscoe, so the priest punishes him by whipping his back. The next day, McKean's brother, Terry, fetches Job to mow his lawn. Terry realizes that Job was up all night doing penance, though Job claims he didn't do anything. At the VSI office, Angelo announces that he's quitting the project but will continue his research with the private sector. Timms notes that he signed a non-disclosure agreement and advises him to take a break before deciding. Terry and Job stop by a gas station to fill up the tank for the lawnmower. When a man asks Terry about the incident at the church, Job tells him that they killed Cyboman. Jake, the gas station attendant, mocks Job for thinking that Cyboman exists. As Job mows Angelo's lawn, a boy named Peter approaches him, so Job shows him his new comic book. Peter's father, Harold, arrives and scolds the boy for leaving his bike on the driveway and spending too much time with Job. Angelo watches in dismay as Harold gets physical with the boy. Later, Angelo goes to the basement to record his audio journal expressing his curiosity about Job's bond with Roscoe. His wife, Caroline, tells him that she's going to meet with her friends. She sees him drinking whiskey, so she warns him that it will only make his depression worse. When Angelo continues recording his journal, he notices Job mowing his lawn, so he invites him in to play video games in his house. Angelo lets Job play brain teasers to observe his capability. Job fails several times, but he eventually finds the correct answer. Later, Peter joins him to play a virtual reality space adventure game. Job is disappointed when Peter beats him, so Angelo tells him that he has other games to make him smarter. The next day, Angelo calls McKean to ask him for permission to let Job spend time with him, excusing that he needs Job's help to remodel his house. McKean agrees after Angelo promises to donate to the church. A day later, Angelo injects Job with a nootropic drug to enhance his brain functions. After putting the VR headset on Job, Angelo starts the program to stimulate Job's cortex. Job is startled by the symbols and intense lights flying towards him, so Angelo tells him to relax. After the session, Angelo notes in his journal that the experiment had positive effects on Job's brain, so he plans to increase the dosage and subject Job to more intense sessions. After about a month, Angelo sees more improvements in Job. He notes that he responded much faster than any of his animal subjects. While getting ready for work, McKean sees Job reading a math book and scolds him. Terry tells the priest to let Job read because he's trying to get smarter. When McKean leaves, Terry advises Job to stand up for himself. As Job's brain functions improve, he also begins to exhibit maturity. While looking at himself in the mirror, he imitates a cowboy in a magazine ad. When McKean enters his shack, he scolds Job for walking around his house without a shirt. Job argues that he deserves some privacy because he pays the rent. Job then demands his earnings so he can buy new clothes and boots. McKean tries to whip him for insolence, but Job grabs his hand and tells him that he shouldn't hit people. Angelo visits the VSI office to show Timms the progress he's making in his experiments with Job. He asks Timms to give him access to the main lab because he can't make any more progress with the equipment at home. Timms tells Angelo that it's risky, but there might be a way. Soon, Angelo takes Job on a trip to the VSI lab. On the way, Job comments on how people are noticing the changes in him. Angelo advises him to keep mowing lawns and avoid drawing attention to himself. When Job asks if Angelo will perform the same experiments he did with Roscoe, he tells Job that it was a mistake because he didn't agree with their agenda to turn the chimp into a soldier. Upon their arrival, Job marvels at the advanced equipment at the lab. After getting into an equipment called the gyrosphere, Angelo initiates a program to alter Joe's brainwave patterns. When the session starts, Job is overwhelmed by the lights and images. However, he gets more excited as the program continues. While mowing the lawn of Angelo's neighbor, Marnie, Job suddenly hears her voice in his head. When he sees her, Marnie invites him inside to have a glass of lemonade. When Job gets inside, Marnie seduces him and makes love to him. When Job returns to the lab, Angelo tells him that they'll have to take a break from the VR treatments for a while to avoid the risk of another seizure. Angelo gives him some interactive discs on world history so he can keep on learning. As soon as Angelo leaves, Job breezes through the entire set in just a few hours. When Angelo returns, he's astounded by how quickly Job went through the whole series, which should have taken him 100 hours. He points out that no one could have the comprehension and retention at that rate, but Job says he only fell asleep when he tried to go through the discs at normal speed. When Angelo gives Job a comprehension test, he gets a perfect score. During a meal at the diner, Job suddenly suffers from severe headaches and starts hearing other people's thoughts. He immediately drives to Angelo's home to tell him about his condition. Angelo surmises that the experiments unlock Joe's psychic abilities. Angelo tells Timms about Job's ability to learn rapidly, but doesn't reveal that Job can read minds. Timms advises him to show his findings to the VSI management, but Angelo says he still needs to sort things out. When Angelo leaves, Timms notifies the VSI director about Angelo's progress and says he's preparing Angelo to present the results. The director wants to use the original Project 5 nootropic drugs, the same substance they injected into Roscoe. Timms reminds him that it made the chimpanzee aggressive, but the director stresses that he wants to see the drug's effects on humans. Later, Timms replaces the nootropic drugs with the Project 5 substance and reconfigures the VR system in the lab. During a session at the gyrosphere, Angelo notices unusual spikes in Job's vitals, so he immediately shuts down the machine. That night, Job wakes up abruptly and sees a vision of his VR treatments. When he goes to the toilet, he discovers that he can move objects telekinetically. At the lab, Job tells Angelo that he somehow activated the dormant parts of his brain. Job also mentions a study that humans under hypnosis could form blisters in their skin just by thinking about it. Angelo doesn't know that he has telekinetic abilities, so he advises him to be patient. When Angelo leaves, Job creates blisters on his hands by using his mind. While spending time with Marnie, he reads her fantasies from her mind. He takes her to the lab and uses the gyrosphere to fulfill her fantasies. Marnie is initially delighted as they make love in virtual reality. However, she gets upset when she's trapped. She asks Job to help her, but Job ignores her plea and transforms himself into a monster. Marnie screams in terror as Job expels liquid on her. Soon, the system automatically shuts down after detecting Marnie's abnormal brainwave patterns. As Job takes Marnie out of the machine, he apologizes to her, but she's now in a catatonic state. The following day, Job demonstrates his telekinetic ability to Angelo by levitating a chair. Unbeknownst to them, Timms is watching them as well. Angelo warns Job that he's moving too fast, and his new abilities can be dangerous. Angelo suddenly senses that Job is trying to pry into his mind. Job points out that he's now smarter than Angelo, and says he won't let Angelo stop him from gaining more knowledge and abilities. Soon, Timms takes Angelo to the director at a branch in Virginia to talk about his experiments with Job. When they arrive, Angelo discusses the possibilities of using his research to cure mental disabilities, but the director is only interested in the changes that occurred since they revived Project 5. Angelo furiously castigates Timms for reviving the project without his knowledge. Timms responds by asking him why he didn't disclose Job's other abilities. Angelo leaves the room without saying another word. The director tells the driver to make sure that Angelo returns to the hotel and asks Timms about Job's other abilities. Meanwhile, Job goes to the VSI lab and injects himself with 3 doses of the Project 5 formula. At the hotel, Timms informs Angelo that the company will pick up Job to demonstrate his abilities to the director. When Angelo looks out the window, he sees several men getting out of a car. He surmises that they're going to pick him up, so he leaves the room. Timms tries to stop him, but Angelo knocks him down. When he gets to the lobby, he tries to rent a car, but the process takes too long, so he decides to leave through the back door. A man intercepts him before he can reach the exit, but he manages to knock him out with a wine bottle when a waiter walks by. Before leaving, Angelo steals the man's car keys. At the lab, Job goes through an intense session with the VR machine and remembers the people who hurt him before he gained his abilities. Back in Virginia, Angelo steals his attacker's car to drive back home. The director tells Timms not to worry because he'll send a team for Angelo and Job at once. Job goes to the church and asks McKean to confess his sins. The priest prays and confesses his sins after Job screams at him. As the priest goes on, Job sets his body on fire with his mind. Job then goes to the gas station to confront Jake. Job uses his telekinetic ability to hit him with the gas pump and tie him up with the hoses. He then implants the Lawnmower Man program in Jake's mind to render him catatonic. Later, Job visits Peter's home and puts the boy and his mother, Carla, to sleep. Afterward, a lawnmower suddenly bursts through the door and goes after Harold. He runs out of the house, but the lawnmower catches up to him. The following day, Angelo arrives and learns about the unusual deaths in the neighborhood. The cops refer to the incidents as murders, but they change their minds and claim that they were accidents when they spot Job next door. When Angelo gets home, he notices his wife's bizarre behavior and realizes that Job is manipulating her mind. Angelo finds Job in the basement using his VR headset. When Angelo uses the headset, Job appears in his virtual body and explains that he intends to create a utopia in the virtual world. The physical Job then announces that he will go to the lab to insert himself into the mainframe computer. He says that Angelo will know when he has entered the neural net when he hears all the phones ringing simultaneously. Job learns that VSI will be picking him up, so he ties up Angelo and puts the headset on him so he can watch what's happening upstairs. When a man knocks on the door, Caroline pulls out her revolver and kills him. Another man shoots Caroline until she drops dead. Job appears to the VSI goons in his virtual form, so they fire their guns at him. Job kills the 2 men by shattering their molecules. Job manipulates Terry to drive him to VSI. Peter calls out to Job, but he ignores the boy, so Peter runs to Angelo's basement. After Peter unties him, Angelo hacks into the VSI mainframe to activate a virus and cut it off from the net. Angelo takes a few explosives from the VSI van and asks Carla to take him to the lab. When Job and Terry arrive at the gate, Job attacks the guards with virtual insects. As Job prepares to get off the truck, a guard shoots at them and hits Terry. Job retaliates by making the guard shoot himself in the head. Inside the building, Job finds Timms in his office, so he shatters his molecules. Soon, Angelo arrives and picks up a rifle before going inside. Upon reaching Tim's office, he finds his body being scattered and pulled back together repeatedly. Angelo places explosives in the building and sets the timer to 15 minutes. When Job enters the mainframe, he realizes that he has no access to the network. When Angelo removes the VR headset, he discovers that Job's physical body is decayed. Outside, Carla falls asleep while waiting for Angelo, so Peter decides to follow Angelo. After placing an explosive under the mainframe, Angelo enters the mainframe to confront Job. Angelo tries to stop him from finding a way out, but Job crucifies him. After reading Angelo's thoughts, he finds out about the bombs. Job tries to deactivate them, but he realizes that he lost his abilities when he transferred himself into the mainframe. When Job hears Peter's voice, he releases Angelo and asks him to save the boy because he doesn't want more death. Angelo finds Peter on the other side of a locked door. Job is still trying to find a way out, but he takes the time to unlock the door for Peter. Soon, the bombs start exploding. Peter and Angelo manage to get out of the building and get back to Carla. Before the bombs beside the mainframe could explode, Job finds a back door. The VSI building blows up as Angelo, Carla, and Peter run back to the car. After several days, Angelo records a journal to promise that he won't let his work fall into the wrong hands. As he prepares to leave the house with Peter and Carla, his phone starts ringing. Before he could answer it, he hears another phone ringing upstairs. Not long, phones worldwide ring simultaneously to indicate that Job has taken control of the virtual dimension.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.